So we work at that. We long for this religion of ours that will speak to our needs every day today. Because this is what we have. Today is our day. Tomorrow is gone, the future is not yet. Today is our day. And our culture is so fraught with uncertainty and danger and fear that we need the comfort that faith can provide us. We don't want conflict. We don't want conflict among each other, among ourselves, and we don't want it within ourselves. The world has enough now, my friends, that pull us apart, that make us fractious and pit one person against the other. And both science and faith, as you know, can do that in an instant. Science, after all, possesses all the keys it needs, nuclear, chemical, biological, to destroy life as we know it on this planet. And religion is not far behind in what it can do to turn people against each other. Religion leads to extremism at times. We know that in our culture that we live in here. We know that in the broader world. We know that from history that produced the likes of the Spanish Inquisition and today produces the likes of Osama bin Laden. So we do seek common ground, if you will, between wonder and intellectual curiosity to unite our people into one Unitarian Universalist faith. In history, we are often told that science and religion don't mix. They are separate realms. And we know that that has gone on throughout history. One only has to look at the example of Galileo and his relationship with his church to know that there has always been conflict. But we Unitarian Universalists, we've evolved somewhat differently, haven't we? We have grown to believe that both science and religion can coexist and can help us solve the problems of the world in which we live today. And I think what has happened is that they have developed on parallel tracks, if you will, science and religion intertwining and moving together and then separating again and then going their separate ways. And on this unique interwoven journey, the interesting thing I think is that whatever we all think we know with absolute certainty, when they come together, science and religion, it usually debunks and disproves everything we know for sure. So we are a question of faith, and we are a religion of questions, because that is what the world is. We try to figure it out. And today, we Unitarian Universalists, we reject old superstitions now for a humanist understanding, to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science. We honor, though, the evolution from magic to a spiritual religion. We recognize that as human progress. And we know that they together make sense of a world, a technological world that today is so difficult to deal with. And you know, all of our faith, all of them, doesn't matter which one, ultimately began out of superstition, pagan rites, and fear. People needed to find a way to make sense of their world. They needed to explain why things happened. They needed to understand why the stars made their way across the heaven, while the volcanoes exploded, while the mists of heaven, rain and snow fell. They needed to have some assurance that they would survive in the world that they lived in. They needed to have less fear and more understanding. They needed to have their world made tolerable. We're no different today. We want to know the why of our existence. We want to know what we can do to have a better life for ourselves and our families. And I believe that for us, we Unitarian Universalists, science and religion in combination can do that, can make sense of our world. They provide meaning for the randomness of the universe. They provide understanding for that dual reality we all must endure, having to live in the face of death. They offer the why of existence. They make our lives bearable. Unitarian Universalists are compelled to follow mystery out of which they came, into mystery out of pure void. Einstein said it well, I think, when he said, the most beautiful thing that we can experience is mystery, the source of all art and science. It was once written that humanity must begin to connect the dots of existence, to begin to interpret the endless diversity of facts that we're presented with, and to put them into some kind of mutual relationship. That relationship can be between science and religion, and where they come together. And this is where I think there is a perceived conflict that people say, that the facts of science and the emotional domain of the spiritual do not mix. Here they tangle and contest, I think, for dominance, and for what? A meaningless struggle, for neither fully explains the cosmos in which we find our existence, nor do they cancel each other out. We believe that each is vital and complementary. As Einstein put it, religion without science is blind, and science without religion is lame. So we continue to grope in our everyday existence, and we speak of living the questions of life. We struggle, each of us mightily, and usually alone, to find out and understand our own existential loneliness. Our Unitarian Universalist theology requires us to lift up and to analyze our worldviews. Not only to look at them, but to see and to check our assumptions and see if they continue to work and make sense for us in our life experience today. And it is a matter of intellectual integrity for us, I think, that we must examine our faith. We must examine it to see if it is practical, see if we're worshiping intentionally and honestly and critically. For without that, our faith, I think, becomes a sham. I believe that the goal of our faith must be functional. It must work for us to inform our lives. Religion, all religions, need to help us live in right relationship with each other and with the sacred as we define it. Only then, if faith and science and religion coexist with each other, can we create understanding for a world that is increasingly out of control. Stephen Gould once wrote, "I do not see how science and religion could be unified, but do not understand why these two enterprises should experience any conflict." And here he makes an important distinction. He writes that science tries to document the factual, the empirical character of the natural world, and develop these theories to explain those facts. Religion, he says, though, on the other hand, operates on an equally important but utterly different realm, the realm of human purpose, of ultimate meaning, and of values. Those values subject to the factual domain that science can only illuminate but can never fully resolve. He sums it up this way, which I think is a phrase that we can take with us. Science studies how the heavens go, and religion how to go to heaven. So we find ourselves, we Unitarian Universalists, in the forefront of this 21st century struggle that seems to exist, perhaps more here than in California. The struggle between rationalism, that search for meaning embedded in both science and religion, and fundamentalism that rejects science for a traditional and literal interpretation of scriptures.